So here we are with REESE WYNANS. We are in the Courthouse Hotel in cell number 3.
Cell block number 3. Hi Andy, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's excellent to be here with you. And there's some great news. You have your new, well I should new, your first solo album out on Provogue, the Mascot Label Group release.
I'm very excited about it, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it coming out the 1st of March.
Now, you've had a career that spans way back to early days of pre-Allmans, 50 years. How come it's taken this long to do a solo album?
Well, that's a good question. I don't sing. In fact, when I sing, people have a tendency to leave the room. So I've always considered myself as a backup musician, and I've always been happy for someone else to take the spotlight. And the only reason I've decided to put one out now is that I thought that it was time for people to realize that I've had a nice career, and I thought I would play some of the songs that I've been on for the people.
And you talk about honouring the legacy of your career, as you said, songs that you played in your past, but also about drawing attention to some of the musicians that you played with to kind of get them to better known to the general public.
Yeah. Well, on this record, I was lucky enough to have a whole bunch of friends of mine who wanted to come over and play with me. So we have Doyle Bramhall on a song, and Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and of course my two friends, Shannon and Chris Layton, came up and we did a couple of our old songs, which was a real thrill for me to play those again. Warren Haynes played on a couple of songs, and the best singer in the world, Mike Ferris, came over and sang some. Also did Jimmy Hall, so did Becca Bramlett, and I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. Kev Moe came over and did a wonderful job, and Sam Moore sang Crossfire, which I thought should have been a Sam and Dave song to begin with. So that was so nice to have him on that. So yeah, it was nice to work with all these people, and we did this almost a year ago is when we were recording these tracks. So we're finally seeing the light of day. I'm very excited about it.
Because after Stevie's sad and very premature demise, it took quite a while until there was another Double Trouble album, with the 2001 release being a long time.
Yeah, and they did well with that, and I was really glad that Tommy and Chris put a record out themselves. I thought that was terrific, and when we did the Austin City Limits show, they invited me down to be a part of that, so I was real pleased to be a part of it. So
the great thing about the new album, which is called Sweet Release, is that your current, I don't know whether you call him a boss, but maybe you could call him a boss, Joe Bonamassa.
Well, yeah, I work for Joe. He's the leader of our band, and the part owner of the management company and the record label and everything else in America and everything else. So I guess you could call him a boss.
So as I understand it, he suggested to you that it'd be a great time to think about doing your own album.
He did. I had actually talked to him about doing a record, and I recorded some tracks, mostly instrumental ditties that I threw together, we did 8 of those. I cut 8 of those, and the instrumentals, and I got to play quite a bit. But after listening to how it came out, I wasn't that happy with it, and so Joe was saying, "Well, that's not the way I would have done it. I would have had more vocals on there and done some of the songs that you famously performed on," and so that's what we've done with this. This was Joe's concept, his idea, and I think it turned out pretty well.
So in doing that, and because I was going to ask about, I think there are about 13 or so tracks on the whole album, how did you, for 50 plus years of doing stuff, recording stuff, playing stuff live, how did you figure out which songs were going to work that you were going to record?
That's a good question. I suggested quite a few songs, and Joe suggested some songs too, and so between the two of us we worked it out. When I found out that Tommy and Chris, Tommy Shannon and Chris Layton wanted to come up and record with me, and we would have Kenny Wayne Shepherd also. We decided to do some of our old songs, and so I was just going to do one Stevie Ray song. We ended up doing 3 of them, and so that changed a little bit. And then I wanted to do this song, Sweet Release, which is a song I played a long time ago when I was in the band of Boz Scaggs.
That's right.
And I thought it was a great song, and as far as I know, no one has ever really covered it. I had to talk Joe into that song. He didn't really like it to begin with, but then I thought we made something special out of it. I wanted to do a Southern rock song because I have roots in the field of Southern rock. I was in a band with Barry Oakley and Dickey Betts from the Allman Brothers before they were in the Allman Brothers, and got to play with Dwayne Allman quite a bit, and so I wanted to do this song. Joe picked out this Les Dudek song called "Take the Time," and
I think that's one of my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of favorites on the album, but I really love both Warren's voice and his playing. The slide playing.
Warren's voice is outstanding. He's the best singer. I swear, he's just a fantastic singer. I'd heard last year that Otis Rush was going through some tough times. You know, of course, he's since passed, but I wanted to do an Otis Rush song. And so we picked out You're Killing My Love, and one of my favorite sort of unknown, semi-unknown blues people is a man called Tampa Red. And so I picked out a couple of Tampa Red songs to do on this, and Joe sang one of them, and then Kevmo sang the other one. So it was just a process, you know, blues, Southern rock, Texas blues, Boz, you know, that's a lot. That's a lot of my career in a nutshell, right there.
So yeah, it's great just looking at the career from the early days you said with Dickey all the way up to, I guess, the modern almost crossover blues that Joe's doing. You know, it's a great expanse and wealth of experience. What I loved is Joe kind of combines both. He did kind of the British blues explosion stuff. He did that stuff at Red Rocks as well, which was honouring Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. And then you've got the new album Redemption, which is originals. So you've got that great mix of current, contemporary, and then old.
Exactly. He's probably the most rock guy I've worked with in quite a while. I started working with Joe almost 5 years ago. We did he put a band together for the Red Rock show, which was a tribute to Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. And I love that music, so it wasn't hard for me to say yes to that. And not long after that, he invited me to be part of the touring band, and thought that was a nice idea too. I was ready to get out of Nashville and get back on the road, so now I've been on the road for, like I said, almost 5 years. We've done the Muddy Wolf, we did the Three Kings, Albert, Freddie, and BB, and we did the British Blues. We've done a live at Carnegie Hall, live at Radio City Music Hall, 3 or 4 studio records, so Joe's been keeping me busy.
And talking about sort of like current artists that are kind of modern, pushing the genre ahead, I'm going to ask about Kenny Wayne Shepherd, because not only is he just featured on one track, you know, he's got quite a few tracks as well. So tell me about your relationship with Kenny and how he came on board.
I met Kenny when he was still a youngster, and got to play with him. I was in his band for a little while. We recorded his record Trouble Is, which I thought was a great record, and got to meet him and Noah. And when we were inducted, so when Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it didn't work out for Kenny to be there, and I thought he should have been there. So when the opportunity came up for us to cut some of our old songs on this record, he was my first call. I wouldn't have done it without Kenny. And so I just love that guy. And he also, we did an Arcangels song, and he and Noah sang the part of Charlie and Doyle, so he's also some Kenny Wayne singing on this record.
And is that on The Shape I'm In?
Doing pretty good for The Shape I'm In, which I thought would have been a good name for this record.
Well, I can see although we're sat in a prison cell, and I believe you might get out based on good behaviour, you're looking good.
Well, thank you very much.
But yeah, I particularly like the way that Noah and Kenny's voices combined, both with the solo shows he does, but also on the track we just talked about.
I think they're playing that song live on their show now, so this is good. That's good.
That's absolutely fantastic. And then if we look through some of the other tracks on the album, on Sweet Release, which is the you said it was the one you really pushed for with Joe, and that's become the title track. Looks like you weren't able to figure out who to sing it, so you got 8 singers. Am I right? 8 singers on that song?
Yeah, there's a whole lineup of singers, that's for sure. All right, so this was Joe's idea. It was my idea. He agreed to do the song. The song's got 9 verses in it, and he says, "Well, let's do it like We Are the World." And so on, if you remember, We Are the World, has somebody different saying every phrase.
We are the blues world.
So he thought, just get somebody different to sing the different verses. And the way the song is, it's sort of a poetic song. The lyrics are very much poetry, and each verse has its own sort of conceptual thing. So we started out with Pauly Sarah singing a couple of verses. Then Kev Mo did a great job singing his verse. Mike Ferris, my favorite guy, sang the 4th verse. And Jimmy Hall sang the 5th verse.
Of course, Sammy Jack Beck.
Yeah, that's right. And Bonnie Bramlett, Becca's mom, sang the 6th verse. And Vince Gill, the 7th verse, which was a perfect verse for him. Warren Haynes on the 8th verse, and then Pauly finished it out again, sang the end. And so it's very much of a vocal heavy song, and I like the way it came out. So I suppose I gave away who's singing, so that's part of it, is you're supposed to guess who's singing the verses, but now the secret is out, so.
And what's great, because often when people go and do solo albums, they go to like a different group of people, but it's great to see pretty much the majority of your current bandmates on there. So you got Mahalia and Jay doing backing vocals.
Yes, and Juanita too, all 3 of them.
Yeah, and Michael Rhodes on bass.
Joe on guitar, and Pauly and Lee on horns on several of the songs. So we got to use quite a few of those guys.
So was Anton on vacation?
He was.
Yeah. That's Anton Fig, who's the normal, the current drummer, great drummer with Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah, he's a spectacular musician.
So towards the end of the album, there's a cover version, kind of an unexpected cover version. It's you on a grand piano, big surprise to start with, but then you're playing, I wouldn't say a cover, it's kind of an interpretation of Blackbird.
Yes, and that was surprising to several people that I would choose to play that song. They just wanted me to play something, play a solo, and so that's the song that I've been playing that song for a little while when I sit around by myself. So I thought I would play that one. It's just a wonderful piece of music. Like I say, it's my own interpretation. So it's I did not expect to ever play it in 4 people, but it turned out pretty nice and nerve-wracking for me to be playing by myself. But I think it turned out all right.
Because normally when I've seen you play, you're playing your stage keyboards, so the B3, and you're playing to the piano, electric piano.
Exactly.
But this is like a full-on grand piano. Is that something you play at home, or?
Oh well, I have 2 pianos at the house. I have a Baldwin grand and I have a Steinway upright, and on the Kev Mo song, on the Tampa Red song, I played the upright. On this song, I thought the grand would be more appropriate. Yeah,
I was going to say the last track, if I got the sequencing right, which is the Kev Mo song, I've Got a Right to Be Blue. It's kind of like a coda for the whole album, and it's the way that Joe's mixed it is to make it sound like an old 1930s vinyl with kind of the scratches and kind of the timbre of the piano, like jangly piano.
A lot of the songs Joe had an interesting ideas for the intros to it. One song we ran a phase shifter through the whole intro to kind of give it that sound. This song, we wanted this Tampa Red song to have a vintage feel, to have it, and as a record collector, you know what old records sound like when you put them on. It's sort of scratchy and the sound is a little bit far away, and so we wanted to start the song off like that and then bring it into full audio as Kevin and Mo and I came in. Thought it worked out pretty nice.
So REESE as an album, I've got quite familiar over it over the last few days. That's a really good complete album from beginning to end. Really interesting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
some shifts and turns. So yeah, it harks to the past, but also points towards the present and future, which we really like. A lot of people will still remember you most fondly for the 5 years you were with Stevie Ray. Any kind of overriding memories from that time?
Oh, I have tons of memories from that time. It was a wonderful time of my life. We traveled around. We were a terrific band. I loved working with Stevie. I loved working with the band, and I loved playing those songs. And so yeah, I have wonderful memories of those days. Now he's been gone for a long time now. So I thought it was time for us to play some of those songs again. And you know, he did a song on the Vaughan Brothers record that I didn't play on back then. None of Double Trouble played on the Vaughan Brothers. But I loved that song, and it's called Hard to Be. So I decided to do a version of that on this record, and that's one of my favorite tracks on the record too.
And you're based in Nashville these days.
I am.
So do you still play? Because there's like one of the bars that you kind of frequent. Do you still, when you get a chance, still sort of turn up and to have a jam?
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, for years I had local bands together in Nashville. One time I must have had 7 different bands I was playing with in that town. I did all kinds of Nashville records. I played on a ton of country stuff. Brooks and Dunn and Vince Gill and Martina McBride, a whole long list of Hank Williams Jr., Leroy Parnell, a bunch of people come to mind. And then I would play with Gary Nicholson. I had a soul band that was really a blast. I called it Grooveyard. I played with Mike Henderson and the Blue Bloods. We did a record which was a terrific record. It's called First Blood. If you get a chance, if your viewers get a chance to hear that one, Mike Henderson and the Blue Bloods, First Blood.
Terrific.
Gary Nicholson, I may mention him, and Ashley Cleveland, Al Anderson, Jeffrey Steele, or some of the people that I played with in Nashville. I always had a great time playing live. That's something that I miss doing, and I don't miss it anymore. Now we play live with Joe all the time, but even those years when I was in Nashville, I wanted to play live as much as possible.
And what about the new generation of players? Because they're spearheaded by Joe, there is this resurgence of modern blues and blues rock. I mean, in the UK we have people like Bob Fritzema, who's Dutch, but he plays over here a lot, Bennett Holland, Stevie Watts. There's some great guys out there. When you're in Nashville, do you like mentor, or there's some players we should look out for that you really like?
My favorite bands now, Doyle Jr., Doyle Bramhall II. I really like Susan and Derek's band, the Tedeschi Trucks band.
Yeah.
They're my favorites. The Markus King Band is really very good. I like them quite a bit. They're the ones that come to mind first. There are probably tons of more, and I look forward to seeing them and hearing them.
And in terms of this album coming out being a solo album, I know you're really busy with some other band, with some other guitarists. Do you think you'll ever have a chance to do kind of a show that reflects some of the stuff on the album?
Well, that's sort of a dream of mine that we could pull that together. Joe, right now I'm on the road with Joe Bonamassa. We do 100+ shows a year, and scheduling becomes a problem. But you never know what can happen. If I could get Kenny, Wayne, and Joe together sometime to play these songs, if I could get Chris and Tommy to come up and play, it becomes a scheduling thing. But if I could pull all that together, that would be some show.
Yeah, we'd certainly be along for that. So as we look towards the near future, you're a busy man. I'm counting 22 dates in the US in February with Joe and band, and then we're looking forward to seeing you in April. 4 shows, 1 in Glasgow, and then the Rawll Albert Hall. You've got 3 dates, 24th, 25th, and 26th of April.
That's correct. And then we're coming back here to London to do some recording later this year. We're going to be over at Abbey Road for about 10 days.
So is that for the...
Lots of time here in London.
Is that for the next Joe project?
It's the next Joe project coming up.
Excellent. And because we're read far and wide, be after the Rawll Albert Hall, you then got a pretty decent run in Europe, ending up in Poland, I think in May.
Yes, and we're going to Australia this year. I think we have a date in Russia. So we'll be gathering lots of miles on the frequent flyer plan.
And I'll see what you clearly need is vacation. But the good news is that, I don't know whether Joe's told you this, you're going on a cruise in August.
This year we have 2 cruises. We have the one in March and the one in August. And I'm looking forward to both of them. Peter Frampton is our guest in August, and of course Kenny Wayne Shepherd is going to be the guest in March. And so I'm actually performing stuff from this record on that cruise with Kenny and Joe and
that would make sense,
Jimmy Hall, and really looking forward to that. And those guys have been so kind to play on this record, and so I'm really looking forward to doing some of the songs live.
Yeah, the cruise in August I think starts in Barcelona and it goes to Monaco and then Malta. So yes, pretty nice.
I've never been to any of those places, so I'm looking forward to. I'm certainly looking forward to that.
So while you're in the cabin, so having your cocktails and just looking at the sea view, I mean, no doubt you'll be listening back to your wonderful album, Sweet Release, I'm sure.
Well, it will be, by that time I'll probably be sick of it.
we're certainly not sick of it.
I've been listening to it since we cut it a year ago, so I'm really enjoying it so far, and it seems to bear up well upon repeated listening. So I'm very excited about this year. I hope the album does well, and hope your listeners enjoy it.
Certainly, I'm sure they will. REESE WYNANS, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and to remind people again, Sweet Release is out on the 1st of March 2019 via the Provogue label, I should say, through the Mascot Label Group. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Very nice to meet you.